Demo's got the half stick of dynamite, which I'm probably going to throw into C tier right away. It's not bad. Only Demo can use this, so Survivalist doesn't get to have it. This is good if you throw it directly at something because you can stun somebody with it. It's really good for stunning Scrags. Then for our first weapon, we have the Grenade Pistol. The Grenade Pistol's pretty good on Demo. You can't hurt yourself with it, which is nice, unlike a lot of other Demo weapons. I'm going to put this one like A tier. I think it's actually pretty solid overall. It's good with upgrades. It actually scales really well with upgrades. High damage right away, and for like Survivalist, it's not bad either. It's not a bad early game weapon if you don't want to blow yourself up and you want to have something for killing potential quarter pounds or clearing up maybe crawlers. Probably be a little bit lower, maybe like B tier for Survivalist, but A tier for Demo. C4 is pretty awesome too. C4 I'm also going to put into A tier. It only weighs 3. It's actually a really good off-perk weapon if you want to take this with any other class. You do get the most of it with Demo, which is nice. You can throw this, it sticks to any sort of surface. It can also stick to enemies, and then you can detonate it. You want to be placing these out so you don't detonate them one after another. If you detonate them one after another, it doesn't do as much damage. You can also blow yourself up with C4 really easy too, so be careful of that. But it's really good for killing like flesh pounds, quarter pounds. Pretty good for boss wave too, because you can put all these on like the Patriarch and just blow him up. On like Survivalists, it's also really good. I'd probably say it's A tier as well if you want to take it on them. You don't get as much, but it only weighs 3, and it clears up those enemies really quickly. You can also take a bigger explosion radius with it. It's really good as an off-perk weapon if you want to take this with basically any other class. Might be decent to take this with like Medic if you just want to kill quarter pounds, or you can take this with Commando just to kill quarter pounds. And then we have the new weapon, the HRG Bombardier. This is the other drone, and I also think that this one's probably like D tier for Demo. It doesn't really help Demo that much. It spits out a bunch of grenades. It attacks slowly. These grenades can be useful if you have Zed time going, because you can put nukes on it then, and hopefully it'll spam out some stuff. If you blow this up beforehand, like you can with the regular drone, so you can't have both of these drones out at the same time for whatever reason. But if you blow it up, it spits out a bunch of grenades and then blow up. That is kind of okay. It's really not that amazing. A lot of the time this just stuns stuff, aggroes big things, and maybe kills some small stuff for you. It's a weapon that doesn't really help you that much as Demo. It would help more on like Survivalist and on Medic. And on Survivalist, I'd probably say this is like B tier. Medic, it's probably B tier as well. But on Demo, it's not that good. Then we've got the HRG Crossboom. This one did get buffed. And this one's actually decent. It's probably not one of my favorites for Demo, but I'm going to put a B tier. I think it's pretty good. This is the crossbow that shoots out explosive bolts. And this can stick into enemies and then explode, deals high damage to them, or you can fire out the secondary bolt, which will also kind of stick into enemies and explode, but it has a bigger explosion radius that deals a little bit less damage. Both are good depending on what you want to be using this against. Regular bolts are good against flesh pounds. The explosive or the bigger AoE bolts are better for crowds. And you do get a decent amount of bolts from this. Sadly, you can't pick them up though, so it's not as useful as like the regular crossbow, but it is cheap. It's still a tier 2. It only costs like 900, so it's not a bad option if you want to take it, and it does scale actually pretty well with upgrades. For Survivalist, it's actually even better. I think it's actually one of the better Survivalist weapons that you can get early on, because the explosion radius is pretty nice. You can move around a bit faster than somebody like Demo. You can still hurt yourself with this, but it's a little bit difficult to do, and this is a pretty decent option. I'd actually probably put it B or A tier for Survivalist early on. And then we got the Tommy Boom. Tommy Boom I'm going to say is like C tier. It's actually really good early on for Demo, but it falls off fairly hard later because it doesn't really scale well with upgrades. This is the Tommy gun that does weigh 7, and it's only a tier 2, so it gets really heavy if you want to throw upgrades into it. And this holds less shots than the regular Tommy gun, but has explosives on each of those shots. It is really good early on because you can clear up a bunch of small Zeds very quickly. It's also pretty good if you can have a lot of extended Zed time and just fire out a bunch of nukes. That is a bonus to it, and it does it better than like the drone. But that's kind of like its main gimmick, is to hopefully set up a bunch of explosions and then hope that that's enough to kill a bunch of things, or just kill a bunch of small stuff early on, or even later on if you want to pair this with certain other options. It's not bad as like a secondary weapon just to be killing small stuff. It's actually pretty decent overall right now. See, the Grenade Launcher, the M79, I'm going to put this one also into B tier. I think it's okay. It's a single shot grenade launcher. It has a big explosion radius, although its damage does drop off pretty quick from that explosion radius. It scales well with upgrades, it's super cheap, it's good for crowd clear. Not too much to say about it, it's actually pretty decent on Survivalist too. Same with the Tommy Boom if you want to take these early on. They're not bad options if you just want some crowd control, especially if you like going with the explosive weapons. You can also have faster reloads on them too with Survivalist, so that's pretty nice. They're decent weapons. I'd probably say they're both kind of like C tier for Survivalist. And then we got to talk about the Pulverizer for Demo. Pulverizer is absolutely D tier on Demo. It is terrible. You don't want to be getting that close with Demo. It's just not very viable. It's an okay option if you know for certain that you're getting King Fleshbound, because it can block and parry and it's better than your knife, so you will survive a little bit more. But actually getting close and smashing stuff as Demo is just not a good option. You're one of the squishiest classes. At least you can't hurt yourself with it. But this is a way, way better weapon with Berserker and with Survivalist. It's probably one of the weakest Demo weapons. Berserker and Survivalist, it's like A or S tier for them because it's just really good and they want to be up close and do a lot of damage. Demo wants to stay at a safe distance and do a lot of damage. The Pulverizer doesn't really let you do that, and you still have the same problem with its light attack, sometimes not killing stuff, sometimes just knocking them down, and you have to hit them again. And since we're up here, let's talk about the M16 as well. The M16, I'd say, is A tier for Commando, and probably A or S tier for Survivalist. It's also probably A tier or B tier for Demo. It's pretty good. The assault rifle on it is pretty nice. It does good enough damage to clear up small and medium enemies. It's also very accurate. You don't have to worry about the recoil. And the grenade launcher on it is basically the same as the regular grenade launcher. So it's kind of like this plus an assault rifle attached, and it doesn't come at any extra weight. It just comes at an extra cost. So it doesn't scale technically as well with upgrades, but it's probably better than the regular grenade launcher. Again, really good on Survivalist. And then we got the Seal Squeal. The Seal Squeal I'm going to say is A tier. Seal Squeal is one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. Does high damage, does good damage per second. You get to shoot at the harpoons and you can set them off. It's one of the funnest weapons to use in the game. It scales well with upgrades. It just has an awkward weight at 7. If it weighed 6, this thing would absolutely be S tier, but at 7, it knocks it down a little bit. It's actually really fun to take on Survivalist too, and I'd also probably say it's A tier for them as well, for basically the same reason, because you can clear up things really quick with it, and it also helps with extra explosion damage, and you have the faster reload. All those are really nice things. Then we have the Kaboom Stick. Kaboom Stick is an easy S tier. Where did it go? It's somewhere around here. I just dropped it. There it is. Kaboom Stick is probably the easiest S tier in the game. It is absolutely devastating. It only weighs 6. It's a tier 3 weapon, so it's not that expensive. It completely destroys anything that gets at very close range. You can fling yourself back with it. Scales really well with upgrades too for some odd reason. And it clears up crowds really well. It's probably one of the strongest off-perk weapons, not even because it gets you a whole bunch of utility or anything for the other classes. It gets you a little bit, but mostly it just lets you slap anything that comes near you super hard. And that is insane. It's probably the best or one of the best weapons in the game. It's definitely top 5 weapons, without a doubt. And it's also S tier on every other class too. It's easy S tier on Survivalist. It's one of their best weapons. And if you want to take it on any other class, it's super strong. You can take this and the Stoner on Commando and just rip through everything. You can take this and the Heel Thrower on Medic and just rip through everything. You can take this and, I don't know, the Dragon's Blaze, Dragon's Breath or something on Firebug, and you'll just rip through everything. Then we've got the Husk Cannon here. Husk Cannon for Demo is decent. I actually think it's better on Firebug, but it's still pretty good on Demo too. I would say it's A tier on them, because you can set off a bunch of nukes with it. It does high damage. The fire is kind of nice for clearing up smaller enemies. On Survivalist, it's not amazing. I don't usually take it there. I'd probably say it's B or C tier. It doesn't really fit your theme as well as some of the other options, but still not a bad option for them either. We got the Seeker 6. Seeker 6 I'm going to say is B tier. It's actually really good on big open maps, but it's situational, similar to these options. Where in small maps it's okay. Basically on really small maps it's a giant revolver, which still does decent damage. Still weighs a lot though, still costs a lot. But on big open maps, when you can set on the lock-on fire mode, it's pretty good. For Survivalist, it's probably less. You're probably not going to take it on Survivalist, probably C or D tier. The RPG is really, really strong, and it has been ever since it has been out, which is basically since Demo's been out. This is an easy S tier as well. Really high damage, really high single target damage, can one-shot Scrakes, can one-shot Flesh Pounds, can one-shot Quarter Pounds, does massive damage to bosses. It has the blowback on it, which is kind of a nice and fun feature just to kill small things with. You pair this with a Kaboom Stick and you have an amazingly strong loadout with any class, let alone if you put it with Demo. It's also really strong on Survivalist too. Really good option there. It just weighs a decent amount. It costs a decent amount since it's a tier 4 weapon. You can even upgrade it if you would like, so that you can do even more damage, but that's really not necessary. It does enough damage without the upgrade. Then we have all of our tier 5 weapons, which Demo has 3 of them. So first up is the M79 Grenade Launcher. This one I'm going to say is C tier. It's honestly not that great in a lot of ways. It weighs a lot, it costs a lot. It's good for crowd control, but at this price point, it's just not enough for it. You could go with the Seal Skull and have a better option. You could go with the regular grenade launcher and just throw upgrades into it if you wanted something like that. You could go with the M16 and throw upgrades into it if you wanted something similar to that. The kaboom stick is going to beat it at close range. It has a long reload. It's not as good as like the RPG for dealing damage. It's probably not as good as the Husk Cannon for just dealing with crowds. It's just such an underwhelming weapon, although it is a super fun weapon. On like Survivalist, it can be fun too, but it's still probably like C or D tier for them. You're not going to prioritize this unless you just have a bunch of DOS, you're playing Endless or something. And then yeah, sure, it's super fun. Then we've got the Gravity Imploder, which I'm going to say is like B tier. It's a little bit better. It does good damage with its primary fire. Its secondary fire is pretty fun. The weapon overall is pretty fun, but the weight plus the cost just makes it not a tempting option to grab over something like the RPG. And again, similar to like the M32, there's some better options that are cheaper if you just want like the crowd control that it gives you. But this one is quite a bit more unique than the M79 or the M32, and it's not as heavy as it, so it does get a little bit of an advantage there. And then we have another kind of new weapon. This is the Zed Mark III. This is a DLC weapon that kind of acts like an assault rifle and kind of acts like a homing rocket and kind of does decent at everything, but doesn't do amazing at anything. I don't know, this one's always felt weird to me since it came out. I'm gonna put like this one like B or A tier. I think it's okay. It does okay damage. It does pretty good damage per second. The homing rockets are really cool. I do like that, but it's still not as consistent for me as like the RPG or the Seal Squeal or the Kaboom Stick, and that's why I just don't use it a whole lot. Any of these weapons on like Survivalist are probably lower. They're probably like C or D tier as well. They're just not that great on Survivalist because again, it's just a whole lot of money, a whole lot of weight investment, and you're not getting a whole lot out of it for what you could buy. There's also one other weapon we got to talk about again, which is the Blunderbuss. And I'm actually going to move the Blunderbuss up from B tier to A tier for demo, because the Blunderbuss is actually pretty decent. It does good damage with its regular fire. It does good damage with its shotgun fire if you want to use this at close range. It does good against crowds. Doesn't cost too much, although it is a tier 4, and it does weigh a decent amount, so it is a little bit hefty, but you can pair it with a lot of other options there. Super fun weapon to use, and it's also pretty good on Survivalist if you want to take it on them too. So still probably like A or B tier for them. A tier for demo, B tier for support. Very fun weapon that I enjoy overall. And I believe that's everything for demo.